So, one of the things I like to talk about with respect to persuasion, especially with respect to spies and people who may have ill intentions, is that a lot of times these people are overtly nice towards you. I'll give you an example. I'll preface it by giving you an example. And admittedly, I might have done something wrong in this respect because there was something that happened the other day where I thought that I probably should have changed my behavior, but I'm still not sure. And the reason for that is it's going to be painfully obvious pretty soon. Here's what happened. I was standing outside at a bus stop waiting for the bus to arrive, and it was dark, it was night, it was cold outside. And like every other person, although I'm a guy and although I know some combat sports, I'm not a black belt jiu-jitsu or a world champion kickboxer, but I do know some martial arts. I know enough to kick and punch and do some moves without revealing too much and without bragging or asserting that I'm some sort of a combat sports great. Anyway, so I'm standing outside, I'm being mindful, I'm being cautious because it's night, and although I'm a girl, although I'm not a girl, I still am cautious and aware. So there's a guy, he looks a little bit shady. He wears a thick outdoors jacket, like a winter jacket, a heavy jacket. He's wearing his hood, that goes all the way around his head, because it's cold outside. I too, by the way, I'm doing that. So at a distance, I appear a little, maybe aloof. And so does he. He also appears aloof. And literally, at a distance, we both appear distant and aloof. And a little bit shady. Simply because we're wrapped inside our hoods. Because it's cold outside. It's freezing cold outside. The wind is literally killing us. So we're standing there. And this guy watches a poster that's an advert for trips to various vacation destinations, such as Spain, Greece, Italy, whatever, or someplace warm. And he makes a note of it, and he walks over to me, and he says, "You know what? Wouldn't you rather be in that pool?" Because it's a picture of a pool. Wouldn't you rather be in that pool swimming in the sun instead of standing here having that wind blowing in your face? And I'm like, and I'm just caught completely off guard. I'm like, sorry, what? And he repeats, wouldn't you rather be in the photo on the advert poster in the pool in the sunshine, swimming around having a great time rather than being standing here freezing your butt off in the wind? And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then he notes that I'm skeptic to his body language and the way that he behaves. So he sort of like makes a note of that as well and said, calm down, I just wanted to say this. Relax, no worries. I just wanted to point that out. Are we good? And then I'm standing there nodding, going, yeah, sure, we're good. And then he circles back to his spot. Now, could I perhaps have opened myself up a little bit and initiated a chat? I absolutely could. Would I have done that? Probably not, because number one, it's a bus stop, and those bus stops tend to be shady. There tends to be drug deals sometimes. There tends to be not very usual, but there could be some violence. There could be pickpockets. There could be loads of other shady people. I've seen shady people, and so I've had a lot of other people as well standing there. So that's completely normal. That's to be expected. So I'm standing there, and I'm just wondering, was I a little bit too harsh, a little bit too strict? No, I was really not. That's what I deduced after a while. And I'll tell you why. The reason is he didn't set up the interaction properly. Because he was standing here at a distance with his hood on, looking a little bit shady. I was standing there with my hood on, looking a little bit shady. That's fine. But instead of just walking over and making that insignificant note of some poster that nobody really cared about, he should have taken off his hood and then made sure to get eye contact with me first, then remained in his spot, because it was only like 10 feet away, maybe even less, maybe just 7 or 8 feet away, and then told me so at the distance with his hood off, looking me in the eyes, clearly signaling that it wasn't out to do anything, because instead he was walking like towards me, and it was really close. It was like 1 or 2 feet away from me without taking off his hood. And so this is an important point, because he appeared shady in the moment, very, very shady. And this actually made me realize something. And I think I think this applies for a lot of men, a lot of dudes, a lot of younger dudes, especially those who are shy and a little bit introverted and so on. Look, if you're gonna walk over and talk to a girl that you think is hot and you want to bang, you can't look shady and awkward and weird. No, you just need to look her in the eye and greet her with a smile. Hey, how are ya? Right. I mean, obviously you don't want to walk around and look like a clown, but you know what I mean, right? And certainly if you're outside and you're wearing a hood and it's dark and cold, you don't walk over like this and, hey, I think you're hot, I want to bang you. Right? You don't do that. That's not how you make sales. That's not how you persuade. That's how you scare people away. But believe me, no girl is saying yes to that. No person is saying yes to that either. And I bet you, 9 out of 10 times, people would have ignored the fella who walked over to me and tried to initiate the conversation simply because he was hooded up and looked a little bit shady and dodgy. And when I took a note of his face, he really looked a little bit off, if you know what I mean. It wasn't like he wasn't groomed. He was actually clean shaven. But he had this weirdly looking face, this weird facial shape that kind of like didn't help. And so as much as the dude probably couldn't help that out, that his face was a little bit off and oddly shaped, at the very least, he could have helped out by removing the hood, getting eye contact with me, initiating the conversation at a proper distance. You know, there's some sort of unwritten rule that you're supposed to stand an arm length away. I just realized I actually, stretched out my arm, which could indicate that I was willing to fight, but I don't. But an arm's length away at the very least. And I dare suggest, when it's dark and cold outside and people are sort of like a little bit on guard, at the very least 3 or 4 arms lengths away. And if there's too much noise, then there's too much noise, and you just have to consider and regard the situation as it is. But surely you don't walk over to strangers with your hood on and sort of like looking a little bit dodgy and weird. Now that I think about it, I don't think he was mumbling and or stuttering. I don't think he was. He was actually speaking quite politely, and actually he was quite well spoken, to put it like that. But if he in turn had mumbled and slurred his words, it would kind of like just add to the poor perception, the poor first impression that he'd already given. So that's essentially the wisdom and the I guess teaching for today. Whenever you're supposed to initiate some sort of interaction, however it is, or with whomever it is, make sure to set it up correctly. Don't walk over and appear dodgy and shady and weird, because it doesn't really help. And it doesn't really matter if it's a man or a woman. It really doesn't. But especially double. If it's a woman, and if you're a dude who's trying to get laid and you want to pick up girls, you certainly don't do that. That should be pretty obvious. So if you want to learn more about sales excuse me, I wanted to say perception. Sales persuasion and energy, or sales energy persuasion. I still haven't properly found out what the name of this series should be, but for the time being, I'm calling it sales energy persuasion because it's it's easy to say. SEP, SEP. If you want to learn more about SEP, sales energy and persuasion, then, and especially if you want to tie it into business and relationships and so on, get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is below the episode description wherever you are watching and or listening to this, and I'll see you there.